So our final speaker for this session will be Dr. Giovanni Kezich from Trentino Folk Life Museum. He'll be speaking on Carnival King of Europe, European winter masquerades in an ethnographic perspective. And a few words. Yes, Dr. Kezich is trained in Siena and London as a social anthropologist. He did his PhD at UCL in 1989. And has published extensively on Italian peasant poets. And since 1991, he's been the director of the Trentino Folk Life Museum, and which is located at the foot of the Italian Eastern Alps.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having invited me. It's been very interesting so far, so I hope to be up to the standard, and I now get on with this time show. The aim of this short presentation is that of giving a summary account of Carnival King of Europe. Hold on. How do I get? Okay. Carnival King of Europe, a research project launched in 2007 by our Trentino Folk Life Museum, Museo degli Costumi della Gente Trentina, which enjoyed from 2007 to 2012 the partnership of some other 8 European ethnographic museums with national standing: Bilbao, Marseille, Warsaw, Ljubljana, Zagreb, Sibiu, Sofia, and Skopje, forming a large international team of field workers and the financial support of the European Union. Some of you in this room may remember what is the European Union. And since continuing its activities in the form of more fieldwork carried out with the independent means of the museum, including the production of ethnographic photographs and films, the publishing of collected essays and monographs, as well as a certain amount of dissemination and public presentations, both in Italy and abroad. A few introductory words will be necessary for a better definition of the scope and aims of the project. Carnival is in fact an elusive notion which has been superimposed not much earlier than the 12th century on the pre-existing world of pagan mask rituals with fairly overt ideological intentions, those of making the wayward old costumes fit into the Christian calendar, suggesting by the ever-popular encompassing metaphor of Carnival giving way to Lent, as depicted by Peter Brugge the Elder in 1559, in a natural cycle of sin and repentance, which could be well be lodged within the scope of Christian social ethics. More recently, in the later part of the 20th century, the word carnival has gone overboard, gradually losing its original relation to Catholic Lent. In Anglophone, prevalently Protestant countries, in fact, carnival applies more and more to events which, alongside their immediate Caribbean or Latin American blueprints, tend to take place in the summer, such as the celebrated Notting Hill Festival. In Orthodox countries, on the other hand, carnival is used more and more to comprehend, in the globalized language of local promotion, a vast array of local names of mask rituals such as Surbacari, Kukeri Igri, Vasilichar, Koza, Capra, Akusul, etc. All in all, the occurrence of carnivals of various descriptions still numbers in Europe. In Europe, events in their thousands. Hence the name Carnival King of Europe given to our project, with a view to the astonishing yet scarcely recognized priority of Carnival and its derivation within Europe's popular culture. In such a wide and well-frequented field, however, an important preliminary distinction must be made. On the one hand, in fact, we find carnivals proper of the kind which must be thought anew and entirely renovated every year. Events of this kind, which can be witnessed at their most in a number of European cities such as Verona, Nice, Cadiz, Patras, Köln, Basel, and in thousands of smaller venues, directly descend for a thorough refoundation of the masquerades which took place in the Renaissance and then again in the late 19th century, with the emergence of a new encompassing scenography made of allegorical floats and ephemeral giant props of papier-mâché. On the other hand, we find in Europe a smaller class of masked events which are based instead on the yearly return of ritual masks, always identical to themselves, having been left completely unscathed from Renaissance onwards by the evolution of carnival concept, of the Carnival concept. This event still dot the continental space in their hundreds, being naturally associated with a few notable exceptions with rural life and costumes of mountainous or otherwise remote areas. In a village setting, most typically, such masquerades take the form of a quest or a caroling tour which the characters in ritual disguise undertake to perform from house to house, exchanging good wishes for foodstuffs and small amounts of money. A conflict between the new carnival and the masquerades of old, which was already apparent in late 19th century Brazil, where the new and the old were already fighting their duel. In this antagonistic context, Carnival King of Europe has taken the side of the obvious loser, and leaving aside the flamboyant allegories of the carnival parades, concentrated on masquerades of this latter specific minor kind, that have often maintained an original denomination of their own, spreading along a time span much wider that of Carnival proper, ranging from Halloween to mid-March and beyond, well until Easter time. Having restricted our gaze to prevalently small-scale village masquerades, of the kind where every aspect of the dramatic action seems to be written once and for all, we have soon found out that, in spite of the pronounced local character that engulfs them, all masquerades of this class share a number of common denominators throughout the European space, displaying an often astonishing degree of similarity in characters, costumes, ritual paraphernalia, and acts, and above all in the structure of the mass performance, as if a forgotten liturgy, and always the same as that, could be seen in filigree behind the appearances of every winter masquerade in Europe, which seem to obey very closely to the same underlying hidden script. Having been repeatedly considered and studied by more or less valiant social anthropologists of the structurally functionalist persuasion as self-sufficient monads able to disclose to one's gaze the undergoing workings of the community of their bearers, in the context of Carnival King of Europe, masquerades of this kind have been made the object of a renewed comparative outlook, which is more akin to that pursued in his time by J.G. Fraser, an approach to which the modern devices of photocinematic documentation, both still and in motion, may add, as they have added, some considerable substance. So, under the premises of 1 or 2 days' visit supplemented by the collection of relative literature and information, a wealth of about 100 masquerades in some 14 European countries have been adequately documented and inspected in 11 years of work. On each, visual documentation, still as well as cinematic, is constantly being organized and made accessible. You can see it on the site www.carnivalkingofeurope.it, while full-scale ethnographic reports are drafted in each particular case. Among the countless aspects of our research which seem worthy of some specific attention, we will limit ourselves to the more general, basic observation as to the structure of the masquerade itself. This can be conceptualized in two entirely different ways, each bearing on a slightly different point of view. A. Masquerades are almost invariably found to be divided into two halves, one beautiful, which comes first, and the other ugly, which follows. The two halves, the beautiful section with its fair, benign characters, and the ugly with its malevolent caricatures of village life, can be made to correspond to two different strategies of apotropaic magic. One allopathic or contagious, that is the beautiful one, the other homeopathic or sympathetic, which is the ugly one. These two aspects make greatly different relative size of importance, but counterbalance each other in the overall dynamics of the ritual. B. The masquerade rests upon a specific sequence of 3 dramatic acts, followed by an epilogue as a kind of hidden script or liturgy. These are Act 1. Act 1 inaugurates the ritual with the unexpected outburst of gangs of fearsome, frightful, horned or masked figures, often fit with heavy bells, whips, and cudgels. Act 2, these are the bells, and the whips, and the cudgels. Act 2 is a much tamer ceremony, often a dance performed by elegant harlequin-like figures clad in white, with an important headpiece adorned with mirrors, ribbons, and flowers. This ceremony most often takes the shape of a mock marriage, less commonly the shape of the parading of a plough in the village, as a form of ritual plowing. Sometimes both actions are featured, marriage plus plowing, so that the marital cortege closely follow the plowman's progress. Act 3 is that of a burlesque display, a frolicking, freewheeling hullabaloo of caricatured characters, which, In spite of this, the section is not open to extemporaneous innovation, since its figures come out of a very specific validated repertoire, which includes thinkers, cobblers, gypsies, blacksmiths, doctors and nurses, the bear and his tamer, the goat, the old couple. The epilogue is a public trial of execution, most often by fire, of an eponymous figure, which tend to be masculine at carnival time and rather feminine at the beginning and at the end of the broader masquerade winter season. Having thus described at a very general level the specific feature of our masquerades, we want to define the relative distribution within the continental space. In that, some maps will better serve to summarize our findings. Masquerades such as the one we have described are typically of the unreformed, i.e. Catholics and Orthodox Christian world of Southern Europe, from east to west, and they are normally not found in predominantly reformed countries such as the large northern belt running from Scotland to Scandinavia and the Baltic, with possible exception of Lithuania. This principle must be taken with a pinch of salt. If in Belgium and Germany masquerades are always found in correspondence with Catholic areas, this is not so in Swiss, where masquerades are often associated, for a variety of historic reasons, with Protestant communities such as Basel or Urnesch in Appenzell, etc. Also in England, which is predominantly reformed, a number of ritual festivals are found which directly relate to the masquerade. These are the Morris Dance, Plough Monday, the Straw Bear, the Green Man, Guy Fawkes, etc., of which they represent single separate splinters, each one having gone astray in the calendar in its own separate way. Other than in Protestant Europe, masquerades for very similar reasons are generally absent in the Islamic area of the continent, for example in the Balkans, Bosnia and Albania, and in the Islamic enclaves of Fyrom, Macedonia and Bulgaria. Also, for the same reason, they tend to be absent or very rarefied in all formerly Islamized area of Europe, of Southern Europe, such as South Spain and Sicily. And let's now turn to the Catholic and Orthodox core, where masquerades can still be found in their hundreds. Here an interesting pattern can be observed between some sort of central area where masquerades tend to take place at the canonic carnival time, i.e. prior to Lent, and whence the concept of carnival was actually developed and diffused in history, and two important lateral areas where masquerades seem to have specularly retained in both the extreme east and west of the continental space their original association with New Year celebrations, being either held at New Year, here we see the Iberia, or being called something like the entrance, as in the Spanish word entroido, which with direct reference to the New Year's entering into office. This is entirely consistent with the commonplace geolinguistic or diffusionist prediction that lateral areas tend to retain in time the former cultural phase. Another generality can be observed about the association of masquerades with the minority languages of Europe, which is a consistently observable fact, so that we have, for example, Basques in Spain, Basques in France, Catalans in France, Provençal French in Italy, Occitans in Italy, Sards in Italy, Germans of various persuasions in Italy, Ladins in Italy, Slavs in Italy, Romanians in Croatia, Croats in Hungary, Saxons, that is Germans in Romania. This is not, however, an obligatory fact, since the majority of masquerades do not fit this pattern, being normally associated, here we see a sample of some 80 masquerades, being normally associated with the official national language of their relative countries. So we may safely conclude that it is really the same condition of cultural conservatism that fostered the survival of both minority language and masked rituals, rather than some underlying obligatory relation between the former and the latter. To conclude, we may propose that the comparative analysis of European mask rituals can tell us a lot about the cultural history of the continent and make us plunge at its very core, offering novel and largely unplundered grounds that defy the prevalently nation-oriented or nationalistically based modes of approach to the subject, thus opening the way in a field closed in by ideology from all sides to a proper anthropological understanding of Europe, its culture, and its peoples. Thank you.